Sunday School, and this morning we're going to our book, Get Your Life Back. Get Your Life Back. The book is by John Eldredge, New York Times best-selling author. And today we're going to start. We're in chapter 5. Kindness towards ourselves. Kindness towards ourselves. For those of you that are on you're on the phone, talk to us. What do you think about this lesson? Kindness towards ourselves. What is it? Did you see anything? Can you see any relevance to your life? To what's going on with you in this? Is there anybody here? Okay. Well, let me get on to Facebook page so I can see if anybody's talking to us there. Okay, I see that nobody's on yet. I'm just going to say good morning. Type it in. Good morning and welcome. To the Alternative Sunday School. Brother Leon, welcome. Brother Leon, I think right now it's just you and I on. What do you think of this chapter, Brother Leon? Kindness toward ourselves. Kindness towards ourselves. I'm subbing today because First Lady's on a flight to Philadelphia for some teaching she has to do on tomorrow. So, what do you think? I'm going to go. I like the beginning of this. I think it helps set the tone. It says, our beloved family dog is dying. But I'm not going to drag you through that tragedy. I want to share something gracious I'm learning through it. How many times in life when we're dealing with whatever life has brought us, whatever God has allowed to touch our lives, how many times do we learn from it? Can you think of some times that you have learned from an experience? Maybe it's birth of a child. Maybe that's a happy time. Maybe a more tragic time is loss of a loved one, or loss of a job, or something that affected you emotionally, and you were expected to deal with that, or you knew you had to deal with that, and yet you had to continue on in life. The author goes on to say in the next paragraph, only yesterday our vet told us that our sweet golden retriever is very ill. And Tonight we're supposed to go out to dinner with some friends. Says, I'm torn. Because we've been scheduling, canceling, and rescheduling this dinner for the last 6 months. And part of me really wants to go. But part of me is dealing with the loss of our family dog. I can relate to that because dogs have been important in my family, in my life. Welcome, Mother Howe, Chaplain Gilbert. Welcome. I can recall one day coming home. I was young. I must have been 11 or 12. Came home, and my dog had been hit by a car. Now, understand at 11 or 12, I don't have adult maturity. And when we got home, if my memory serves me correct, we came home from prayer. We had gone to prayer. My mother didn't go. My brother and I went with my dad to prayer, and we got home, and she said, Duane, your dog got hit by a car. He's in the back. He's in the backyard. And I went back, and I think you could probably hear me crying for a whole block because that dog, I think his name was King, I had a real attraction for, and now he's gone. Unlike our author, I didn't have adult things to do. So I sat on the back step, and I petted, and I rubbed, and I petted, and I rubbed, because emotionally, what I loved was gone. How many of you can relate to a pet that becomes a part of the household? They're almost like one of your children. I taught them how to, I house trained him so he could be in the house. He was affectionate to me, and yet he's gone. Now, how am I going to deal with the rest of life? How am I going to deal with what I have going on today? The author, when he had just gotten word the night before that their pet was dying, the next day he felt guilty because I need to spend time mourning my pet that's really a part of my family. But I have other things in life that I have to go through. Have you ever been at a place where you've been torn? This one wants you to do this, that one wants you to do that, the other one wants you to do something else. You're torn. What are you going to do? In this case, he said they had been planning for 6 months to go to dinner. Something come up, they'd cancel it. They'd reschedule. They'd cancel it. They'd reschedule. So now he's feeling bad because he doesn't want the others to think, I don't want to do this. Can anybody relate to that? Welcome, Sister Kim, Missionary Kim. Can anybody relate to it? We got issues. I've lost somebody that I love, something that I love. Well, maybe everybody can't relate to that. I can. It says, part of me is dealing with the loss of the family dog. What I'm aware of in this moment is how often I need to put my soul aside in order to carry on with the demands of life. We all do. Life goes on despite our personal struggles. You lose your father on Wednesday in corporate America. On Monday, you're expected to be back on the job doing everything and not thinking about the loss of that father. it's hard on your life with God. But tonight, I don't need to put my soul aside. Our friends are understanding, and we can reschedule. We're talking about kindness towards yourself. Kindness towards yourself. It's easy to be kind towards somebody else. As a matter of fact, society expects us to. Our families expect us to. Our friends expect us to. Our jobs expect us to. Do what they want you to do. Make them happy. But it's going to happen at someone's expense. Whose expense? Generally, it's ours. Or it's our families. You know, I could relate to this. Being a pastor, I can have so many different demands. But at what point do I take care of me? At what point do I take care of my family? When tragedy attacks the family or emergencies arise, we're often challenged to put on our superhuman or Superman cape, rush through to the emergency, and tend to the needs of everybody else. That's what we do. That's what we've been taught. But who's going to attend to you? What are your emotions? Ephesians chapter 6, verse 1 through, verses 6 through 8. In the New Living Translation says, "So we praise God for the glorious grace he has poured out on us who belong to his dear Son. He's so rich in kindness and grace that he purchased our freedom with the blood of his Son and forgave our sins. He showered his kindness on us, along with all wisdom and understanding." Think about that. Jesus loved us so much that he gave his life. Think about that. He gave his life in spite of the fact that the people that said they loved him said Hosanna on Palm Sunday, saying how much they loved him, and Jesus knew that on Friday they were going to be saying crucify him. But he came for this purpose. How many of us sometimes feel that that's our purpose? That's our purpose. Brother Leon said, most athletes play while hurting, and most people are living life while hurting about something. Okay? I guess I can kind of agree with that. From an athletic standpoint, you have sometimes you have athletes, yes, they're being paid, yes, they're somewhat quasi-entertainers, they love what it is they do, but if they get hurt, for example, what if they get the wind knocked out of them? They stay on the field for a little bit in football, and they have to go out for a couple plays, and somebody's in the fans talking about, he's all right, there's nothing wrong with him, he's just hampered. The expectations of the fan base are just suck it up and go out there and play, even if you're hurt. Forget the fact that there might be long-term injury if you continue to play. Forget the fact that you might not be able to barely walk, but you need to get out there on that field and play. And that's the case in whatever sport it is. Whether it's a football field, a basketball track, a soccer field, just to name a few, volleyball, a volleyball court. No, you don't have time to sit down and rest or for the trainers to take care of you. You got to do this because of the expectations of a fan base, if it's sports, of family, if it's your family. The expectations are you're going to always be there because you really are their Superman, their Superwoman. Good morning, Mother Cole. Missionary Edwards, Kim said, "You're only as good as your last win in the eyes of the crowd." That's true. But at what point do you take care of you? We have to also have some kindness toward ourselves, towards us. It's hard to give ourselves grace to be human and to reschedule so that we can take time and do what is soothing to our souls or allow ourselves to have peace during chaotic times, regardless to what those chaotic times might be. Mother Linda Howe says, sometimes you wear yourself down to no return. Yes, we do. Here's the unfortunate thing. Others don't care if we wear ourselves down because they want what they want. What do the rest of you say? Kindness towards ourselves. Living up to expectations of others forces us to remove our feelings and issues as we rise to the occasion of those who have communicated their needs for us. Our book is Get Your Life Back. Get Your Life Back. Now somebody might say, well, that goes against all God's teachings. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. It doesn't. I remember hearing when I was young that we have to be careful, the church has to be careful, because we can be so heavenly bound that we're no earthly good. Meaning, we can try to do all we can for building of the kingdom, but we forget about how we're going to live in this world. Well, let me ask you a question. When is the last time you took just a moment to rest, to take a breath, or because you really couldn't do it, you just said, I'm sorry, I can't do it? And then how guilty did you feel? How guilty did you feel? And let's be honest. Sometimes family's going to make us feel guilty. Sometimes friends are going to make us feel guilty because they want what they want and they don't think about you. But somebody has to. Sometimes we've got to be kind to ourselves and give ourselves what we would advise somebody else to do for themselves. Even when it doesn't make them feel very good. Even when they get upset. Even when they try to hurt your feelings. Even when they say, I knew I shouldn't have called you. I knew you was going to tell me no. And you stop. Wait a minute. just call me? Didn't I just do? Did you forget what happened last month? Did you forget that I've always been there for you? It's interesting. Living up to the expectations of others forces us to remove our feelings and issues as we rise to occasion of those who have communicated their needs to us. It's almost like we have a big sign that we carry. Whatever you need, call me. That's Jesus. That's Jesus. Whatever you need, call Jesus. But they don't always call Jesus. Sometimes they never call Jesus, but they're going to call us. With an expectation that we can do what Jesus can. And we're not Jesus. Sometimes, we don't give ourselves grace to sit down, to refocus on the project. We're extremely hard on ourselves, often comparing to others surrounding us. I got to do this because Aunt Sally needs me. I got to do this because Uncle Joe's called me. I got to do this because I only have one child, and I got to do. But what are you teaching them? Because see, the reality of it is, what we exhibit is what we teach others, and we teach them, one, that we're always going to be here, so you can always call on me. Two, we teach our children to grow up and to be the same way, so that they don't have time for themselves. They don't have time for their children. They don't have time for others. They teach us, we teach them in that is not about us. It's all about everybody else. But when does self-care come into play? When does self-care? See, I can do so much for everybody else that I'm no good for myself first, to my family second, and I can't hear a word from God because I'm too exhausted, so I don't fulfill His purpose for me and my life. When we try to live up to other people's expectations, we lose ourselves. Again, reading from the book, Get Your Life Back by John Eldredge. And today's lesson is dealing with kindness towards ourselves. Kindness towards ourselves. Is there such thing as being kind toward ourselves? Is it possible for us to be kind toward ourselves? Should we expect to be kind to ourselves? Should we take the time for self-care? Sometimes we're so busy helping and working with others and doing for others, when we're sick, we don't go to the doctor until it's too late. Good morning, Missionary Cunningham. But at some point we have to have kindness towards ourselves. Now, when I say that, I'm not saying that we shouldn't help others. I'm not saying that we shouldn't be there for others. I'm not saying that we shouldn't encourage others. But what I am saying is, while we do that, I can't effectively encourage Brother Henry if I'm not here to do it because I can't help Brother Bennett. On behalf of others, Mark 12 and 31 says, the second is equally important. Love your neighbor as yourself. No other commandment is greater than these. We can be bitter people and not realize that the bitterness causes others to be in the wrath of our bitter moments. When's the last time you just stopped, thought about what was going on in your life? How can I effectively help my family? How can I effectively help me? Well, yes, got to put God up front. Got to go to God in prayer. Got to seek his face. Got to call on him. Got to depend on him. But when I've done all of that, if I'm so tired that I can't do anything for me because my phone is ringing, my text is ringing, I've got an email here, an email there, and I'm addressing all of those, at what point do I help me? Kindness toward ourselves. Is there such thing as helping ourselves? Well, the author says there can be unspoken, unrealistic expectations. I'll read a paragraph. And this is on page 57 for those of you who have your books. I received another one of those videos the other day, an email from a friend with a link and the enticing line, "You've got to see this." And it was impressive. No question. A beautifully filmed video of a professional dirt bike rider or racer who had taken up surfing and wanted to combine his extreme adventures. So, he constructed a dirt bike he could actually ride at high speeds on the ocean. Really? The generous project was filmed in Tahiti. Or the gorgeous project was filmed in Tahiti. Oh, Tahiti's nice and warm about now. I don't know about anybody else, but I'd like to be there. I'd like to feel that warm breeze as opposed to, I think when I drove up it was 32 degrees this morning. The climax of the video is him actually catching and surfing a wave on a motorcycle. Impressive. Outrageous. In the battle for our attention, this one is as easy a winner as it is awesome. And completely unkind. Because the cumulative effect of this surf sets up all sorts of unspoken, maybe even unconscious expectations within us. I don't think we've given any thought of what it does to the soul to live in a culture where the kind of stuff, that kind of stuff, is an everyday occurrence. First, it was the brash jumping, folks leaping off cliffs, tall buildings, wearing a parachute or a parasail. That became routine, so it elevated to jumping without parachutes and squirreled suits flying through the air to safe landing zones. Now that's routine. So the video I got the other day was two guys jumping off a mountain with no safe landing zone within miles, flying in squirrel suits throughout the air and making their landing into the door of an airplane. The incessant upgrade of everything, always pushing the boundaries. Extreme this, extreme that. Unspoken, unrealistic expectations. We put other people's thoughts and behaviors in front of our own value system. And when we do that, what do we learn? Constantly push. Constantly push. Got to always do better. But at what point do we take the time? At what point do we take the time to think about us? Brother Leon said, we compare what we should be able to do and handle it to what others are able to do and handle. If mama, daddy, or our co-workers was able to do it, why am I struggling to do it? That's a good point, Brother Leon. I can't do what everybody else can do. I've got to understand that. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't do the best that I can. But it's unhealthy to do what I can't do. Mama and Daddy could do that. I can't. I'm sorry. Uncle John, Aunt Susie could do that. I'm sorry. I can't do that. What I do, I should not put the same expectation on others. What I should tell them is, you do your best. At the same time, I can't accept their expectations of me to grow to a point where now what I'm doing is dangerous because I'm not taking care of me. Now what I'm doing is dangerous because I'm going to try to outdo you. When I was growing up, they said sometimes that was trying to live up to the expectations of somebody else. Trying to do what they do. I can't do everything they can do. All I can do is what I can do. But when I can do it, I ought to do it to the best of my ability. But that also entails me helping me. Sometimes I just gotta, sometimes when I get in, after I've been in the office, get back to Kalamazoo, I want to get up, but I finally learned something. If I have to take a nap, I've got to take a nap. Otherwise, I'm no good to anybody. Sometimes I hear, well, what did you do today? And it can be anybody, and I can say, is that all you did? Wait a minute. You don't understand the stress. You don't understand the emotional toll. You don't understand what it is to be kind, that for me to be kind to me. You don't understand how I struggle not getting up to go do what you want me to do. And that's emotionally taxing. But at some point I have to take care of me. Because if I don't, I'm going to end up laying on the floor. And somebody's going to walk in and see me. And I'm going to be unconscious. They've got to call the hospital because I didn't take care of me. I was always taking care of other people. Always doing for other people. And like I said, we do what we can. But not to the expense of ourselves. Of those of our families, our children, our loved ones. Missionary Darlene said, being kind to yourself is okay. We must believe that we're not being selfish. Oh, you brought up that word. You tell us, you're just being selfish. You just don't want me to have what you have. Come on. Give me a break. We've got to get to a point where we appreciate who we are. We love who we are. We do what we can for everybody else, but at some point, we have to stop. Let me say it again. At some point, we've got to stop. Look ourselves in the mirror and say, I need some self-care myself. Got dinner scheduled. I'm sorry. I just can't make it. I'm literally exhausted. I'm sorry. You want me to do that, and let me look at my calendar. I've got 5 things I've already got scheduled today. Overlapping times. But you want me to fit you in. And sometimes we can try to do so much that we really can't do anything well. So we have to stop. Take a moment. Take a breath. Sometimes we just have to say, I'm sorry, I can't do it. Sometimes we have to cut the phone down and put it on vibrate and just go to bed. Get some rest. Take care of ourselves. I can't be everything to everybody. As much as the expectation is that we are. I understand. Scripture says, to whom much is given, much is required. Yes. I'm not saying be lazy. I'm not saying don't help. I'm not saying don't do what God called you to do. What I am saying is there are some things within our control that we have to stop and breathe. Otherwise, as I mentioned earlier, somebody's going to walk in and we're laying on the floor. Or we're getting ready for a meeting. And all of a sudden, we start shaking. We're having a panic attack. Because we didn't take care of us. We didn't take care of our needs. We didn't allow ourselves to hear a word from the Lord because we were so busy going everywhere, doing everything. And sometimes it's to our detriment because we don't take the time to study our word. We don't take the time to pray. We don't take the time to ask God to help us. Because I'm so busy, you know, I'm and when we get done saying that sometimes we have to just sit down, take a deep breath, and let God minister to us. That too is being kind to ourselves. When we take the time to let God minister to us, to let God pour into us, to let God speak into us, to hear a word from the Lord, because that's what we need more than anything else, to hear a word from the Lord, guidance, direction. You know, there's a psalm that is very popular. Sister Benita said, others others' unmerited expectations can turn into a very uncomfortable weight. It's true. Here's the problem. We then fall because we're trying to still carry all of that weight because it's someone else's unexpected and unrealistic for me to do. Now, Mother Howe, you just said the magic word or the magic phrase. She said, are we man pleasers or God pleasers? Am I trying to meet all the expectations of society, of mankind, or am I doing what God has called me to do, purposed me to do, instructed me to do? But I'm having a hard time doing that because I'm trying to please what man's asking me to do. And I'm getting it all confused because I'm saying, but I'm doing God's work. But part of God's work is for me to get some rest also. Now, Missionary Darlene, you know you're going to get in trouble with this. She said, I've learned that sometimes it's okay to say no. To say no, we defy others. We don't live up to somebody else's expectations, and they're not going to pat us on the back, and they're not going to say good job, and no, they're not. And when we do everything they want us to do, they're still not going to say it. They're just going to call us more. I was talking just before we got going, and I said, First Lady has an expression, and we couldn't remember exactly how it was, but something to the effect of, your lack of planning does not necessarily mean it's my emergency. I got to get some rest. But because you didn't plan, you want me not to get rest to meet your needs. Is that really fair? Is that fair? Who should I be living up to? Expectations of man or God? Do you remember when God created Eve? What did he do? He put Adam to sleep. He put Adam to sleep, created Eve, and when he woke up, it was, meet Eve, she's your helpmeet. Why? Because the scripture says it's not good for man to be alone. Sometimes we need alone time just to rest, just to recuperate, just to hear a word from the Lord. It's okay to be kind to you. It's okay for me to be kind to me. It's okay for me to understand how I'm going to make it in this world is I have to, at some point, stop and get some rest myself. That's okay. That's okay. Do the best that you can in pleasing God, doing what God has called you to do, helping humanity, helping society. But after you've done all of that, you still have to take some time for you. You've got to rest. You've got to go on vacation. You've got to be willing to say, I just had a major loss and I'm sorry. I know we had an appointment, or we had dinner planned, but can we reschedule this because I've got to get myself together. Because if I don't get myself together, allowing God to help me, who's going to do it? say something when I'm counseling or ministering to someone that has suffered a loss, especially if it's a man. Because I grew up in an era where we were told as little boys, men don't cry. And guess what? We then grew up saying, men don't cry. So we got to be hard. We got to be tough. We got to be strong for everybody else. And what I recognize as I continue to mature in life is that if I didn't take the time to cry over my loss, to cry over my loved ones who had a major impact in me, if I didn't take that time, you see, those tears are emotions. And the body is made that emotion is going to come out. So if I don't freely release it, and that's being kind to me, if I don't freely release it, it's going to violently come out. And that's when you walk in and you see me laying out in the floor because I've had a stroke, I've had a heart attack. Couldn't handle it. I've told some men, if you don't want somebody to see you cry, that's all right. You get off to yourself, you take a drive, and you scream. That's taking care of you. Because that emotion has to come out. Because none of us are going to be here always. We've got to learn to expect. We've got to learn to plan. We've got to learn to take care of us. So when it happens, we're okay. Well, it's 9:47. Got to get ready to go. I'm going to ask if you don't mind, if you want to give an offering, you can give via Givelify, Muskegon, Mount Zion, and just give an offering. You can mail it to the church, the Mount Zion Church of God in Christ, 188 West Muskegon Avenue, Muskegon, Michigan, 49440. If you're in town, you want to drop it off at the church, we're at the corner of 1st and Muskegon, and on the 1st Street side, there's two big brown doors. Next to that first door that you come to, that's on the right when you're walking up to it, there's a silver mailbox. You can just slip your gift inside and just slide it all the way through. It's going to fall in a locked drop box. If you can be a blessing, we thank you. If you don't have it, remember what we're talking about. Take care of you too. Self-care. Kindness toward yourselves. It's okay. When you're able, then, okay, we say thank you. But don't do it at the expense of you. This has been a good lesson. Time has gone by very quickly. If you tuned in late, First Lady had to take a flight. She's got a class she's got to teach tomorrow and Tuesday morning, I believe it is. And she'll be back Tuesday evening, so pray for her that she too takes time for her. We can be so busy that other people expect what they would not do for themselves. We've got to allow ourselves to take some time for us. Maybe it's just to sit down in a chair, sit back, fall asleep, take a nap. But we have to do it. Thank you for joining us tonight. On tomorrow evening, I believe there will be book club at 6 o'clock. I don't think First Lady's going to be back, but Pastor Chris is going to be leading the whole thing. And then at 8:30 tomorrow evening, there will be prayer. Thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you again next week.